I, 35M, recently lost my parents in a tragic and unexpected accident, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything that's happened. My parents were fairly well off, owning a couple of properties and having investments, but they didn't leave a will. So, as their only biological child, everything is legally coming to me once the estate is sorted out by the solicitors. My parents fostered a boy, Ben, 16M, since he was 5. Ben has been part of the family for over a decade, and my parents treated him like their own son. But since he was never adopted or made a legal heir, he's not entitled to any of the inheritance. Ben isn't being left completely out in the cold, though. As a looked-after child, he has an ISA set up in his name by the government, which I understand the government contributes to. My parents also put money into it each year. I don't have access to the exact numbers yet because everything is still being managed by the solicitors, but from what I remember it was around 8-9K per year. This means Ben will have a decent amount of money when he turns 18, plus whatever support he gets from social services in the meantime. Here's where it gets complicated. My girlfriend has gotten quite close to Ben over the years, and she thinks I should share the inheritance with him. She argues that Ben has now lost two sets of parents, his biological ones and now my parents, and that it would be the right thing to do. She feels that Ben deserves something more than just as I say, especially since my parents considered him their son. I understand where she's coming from, and I feel for Ben. Losing my parents has been devastating, and I can't imagine what it's like for him to lose another set of parental figures. But at the same time, I'm not sure it's fair to expect me to give up a portion of my inheritance. This money could help secure my future, enable me to buy a home, invest, or start a family. I don't have access to the inheritance yet, but when everything is finalized, it will legally belong to me. I'm torn between what I'm being told is the right thing and what I feel is fair. I've always been polite with Ben, but we never really bonded, especially since I was already an adult and living away when he came into the family. So, ATA for not planning to share my inheritance with my parents' foster son? I feel guilty, but I also think I have the right to keep what's legally mine.
Comment 1. I'm gonna go with NTA because your parents didn't set up a will or arrange in any other way for him to be taken care of if they pass. My parents have both had wills since they were your age. There's no excuse to put it off, unless they were completely comfortable with you getting everything. Why did they never adopt him? What was the logic behind raising this kid for over a decade with no official legal ties to him? It's possible they never wanted any of the estate to go to him, and that's why they never adopted and didn't put him into a will. It makes no sense not to adopt him unless they didn't want full legal responsibility over him for the rest of his life, including any possible inheritance. Comment 2. YTA. You are 35. Ben is a minor who has been your parents' child for over a decade. You are going to lose your relationship and likely the respect of anyone who knows you if you don't share the inheritance with your sibling. It is simply the right thing to do. At a bare minimum, you need to set him up a monthly allowance and educational funds, since it seems like you also plan to send him back to the system. Comment 3. YTA. If your parents didn't want to use their assets to take care of your brother, why were they actively using their assets to take care of your brother while they were alive? It's clear that's what they wanted, because it's what they were doing when they unexpectedly passed away. My husband, 36M, thinks it's funny to gaslight me, 35F. He says he's just being silly. I don't find it funny, and it upsets me when he continues to push his false narratives. Especially because he's a bad liar and you can see it in his face when he's doing his gaslighting bit. I've told him many times that I don't appreciate his way of joking with me, but it's like he doesn't listen. Today while shopping he asked me for my opinion on a pair of shoes he found and was trying on. Before I could answer, he was already saying things like, "No, right? These don't look that great, huh? They just aren't what I usually wear," to which I responded, "Well, it seems you don't like them, you don't really need my opinion. They do look trippy, though." I said that because the pattern of the shoes faded from black to white with black speckled underneath the white fabric of the shoes. I don't know how else to describe them other than they reminded me of an optical illusion. He decided he didn't like them and returned them to the shelf. It was my turn to try on a pair and he came around the corner and gave a disgusted face. And I asked, "You don't like these?" To which he responded, "They look trippy." The color pattern and the color palette of the shoes was very similar to another pair I had tried on in a different brand, which he was fully supportive of. So I felt he only said this as his way of being silly again. I then asked, "What do you mean trippy? Are you saying that because of the comment I made on the shoes you just tried on?" To which he replied, "No. I didn't even like them," and I asked, "Then why did you ask my opinion?" To which he replied, "What opinion?" and gave me a confused look. This is what I mean by gaslighting. This one example may seem silly, but yesterday, while I was in the bathroom, he made a ruckus and yelled out a profanity. I thought he was hurt and called out to him. When he came over, I asked him what had happened and he told me nothing happened. He was folding laundry and didn't know what I was talking about. And when I explained what I had heard, he told him he didn't hear anything and he wasn't doing anything. He eventually caved and grinned when I wouldn't let it go. It's become second nature for him, and I'm so tired of constantly having to explain myself and pull the truth from him when he tries to act silly. So, I put away the shoes, and asked him for the keys to the car so I can wait for him in the car, while he continued shopping. I was already annoyed and frustrated and wanted to just go back to the car to cool off. He refused to hand them over and said he was going to the restroom and proceeded to walk away. At this point I figured after he went to the restroom we would be leaving the store, so I waited for him at the front of the store. Not at the door, but within view of the front entrance. I don't know at what point he slipped out because he called me within 10 minutes of waiting. I answered the phone and told him I was waiting at the front for him, and he then proceeded to let me know he was already in the car waiting for me. This hurt my feelings. Because while I was letting him know where I would be waiting on him if he gave me the keys, and he didn't grant me that, he left me behind in the store waiting for him. So I walked alone through the parking lot to get back to the car feeling humiliated. I began crying on the way home from being frustrated with his behavior. I started my day with his silly gaslighting antics and they hadn't resolved by the afternoon. When we got home, he proceeded to tell me he was sorry for whatever he said or did that upset me. I took off my wedding rings and dropped them in the cup holder and told him I was done. I got out of the car and walked into the house. I feel that if he isn't even aware of what he did to upset me, even after I've spent all this time in our marriage telling me I don't appreciate him tampering with my recollection of events or reality, then I shouldn't even bother with the marriage anymore. We've only been married 3 years. I know I shouldn't make permanent decisions based on temporary emotions, but I don't know how much longer I can continue letting him gaslight me because he thinks it's funny. Comment 1. He upsets you over and over, tells you you didn't hear what you heard, makes your life more difficult on the regular, and doesn't seem to care at all about how you feel. Yuanta. Comment 2. My dude, this boy gets off on lying to you and messing with your head. He doesn't love you. He doesn't respect you. Find someone who does. NTA, but time to cut your losses. I, 38F, am a dressmaker and have my own shop. It has been a custom in my friend group that my wedding gift to friends who marry has been an original wedding dress made to their taste, and have done this for 2 friends. I love my job and I love my friends, so it has always been an easy choice for me. However, I am currently 26 weeks pregnant with my first child and trying to lessen my workload as I prepare for my maternity leave and pass larger projects over to my employees. My friend informed me last night that she is getting married. I was of course so happy for her and congratulated her. She asked if I'd be making her dress for her and I told her of course, to just let me know when they had a date, and I was told they already had a date, January 19th. That was fine, a year and 5 months, perfect, plenty of time to do the designs and make it, and I expressed as much to her, but she corrected me. It wasn't January 19th 2026 like I assumed, but January 19th 2025. I was a bit shocked at this and told her that if that's the date she'd picked I'd have to take back my promise, as there is no way I can make her dress in that time frame as I'll not be too long postpartum. I asked her to reconsider the date if she wanted me to make a dress, pointing out how 5 months wasn't much to plan a wedding anyway, but she insisted that was when she wanted it. I didn't push as it was up to her, but I made it clear I will not be able to make her dress for her then. She didn't understand this at all, pointing out how I'll be taking time off work soon anyway, and can't I just use that time to make her dress? I admit in hindsight I got a bit snappish here, and she likely didn't realize just how much work goes into a wedding dress, but I asked her if she'd hit her head and why she'd think it's okay to ask me to put stress on my pregnancy for her wedding dress. She has been putting messages in the group chat calling me out for it and saying how it's easy to tell who my favorites are and it's clear her feelings are hurt. I'm annoyed but also feeling a bit regretful about this. I can't trust my employees to make a wedding dress without me, as their skill level isn't up to that, but maybe I could have a rehearsal dinner dress made for her, or even a reception dress to soothe the hurt of her not getting the custom dress she wants. Comment 1. NTA. So, you in fact offered her an incredibly generous gift that will take you a great deal of work, and you advised her that this amount of work needs a certain time frame. And the ungrateful has the nerve to demand that you do it in a time frame you can't accommodate, while on maternity leave and recovering from the birth of your baby. You are in no way an R here. She is though, and I'd suggest that given her attitude, she does not deserve a dress from you. Comment 2. You're definitely not the asshole here. Pregnancy is no joke, and your friend seems to be downplaying how much work and stress goes into making a wedding dress, let alone dealing with a newborn. You've done amazing work for your friends before, but your health and your baby come first. It's not about favorites, it's about what's realistic. If she can't understand that, it's on her. Offering to make a smaller dress or something else is a nice gesture, but you shouldn't feel guilty for setting boundaries. Comment 3. NTA. Does your friend realize that you make wedding custom dresses, not quick and fast fashion? Even if you weren't pregnant, I'd imagine that would still be a lot of time to make a custom dress, then do any alterations. On Saturday mornings I study at a cafe. It is always crowded, coffee shop noise helps me focus, so I show up at opening time, 8 a.m., order some food and a drink, and stay for 2 to 3 hours. The layout is mostly two-person tables that can be pushed together, with some larger tables as well as counter seating. Even though I go on my own, I always sit at a two-person table, as the counters are uncomfortable for me and they do not have much space. I also like sitting against the wall so that people walking by can't see my computer screen. Yesterday at 9 a.m., I was doing work at a table when a random woman sat across from me. This ticked me off because I don't like my personal space being invaded, and I would have appreciated it if she had asked me before sitting down, but I ignored it. I was near the counter that day, so she might have just been waiting for her food. As I looked up, I noticed she was talking to another woman in the line to order. We'll call the first woman Beatrice and the second woman Susie. Susie was saying how they might have to take their food to go because no tables were available. Beatrice didn't address me directly, but she gestured to me, as if planning to take over my table. This ticked me off more because it was like I was an object that could be moved, but I knew when the time came I would ask them not to sit at my table. Sure enough, Susie got the order in and brought her number to my table. She then asked if I wouldn't mind moving to the counters so that her friend could sit here, saying her friend had recently had back surgery and the counters would be too uncomfortable for her. I told her no, the counters are uncomfortable for me too, and there would not be enough space for all of my books and notebooks. She called me rude and inconsiderate and said I shouldn't even be there because I wasn't eating anything. I said I had bought breakfast and a drink, not that it was their business, and that they could take things to go. Eventually, one of the workers came over and asked if they were bothering me. I said they were, and Beatrice and Susie were asked to leave. When I got home, I recounted the story to my roommate. I thought she would be as horrified as I was by their behavior, but she was hesitant to take a side. She said their behavior was rude and entitled, but at the same time I was taking up a table at a notoriously busy cafe for a long time and I could have moved. Later, my sister likened it to not giving up a seat to a disabled person on public transit. This I don't agree with because transportation is a need for a lot of people, and these people didn't need to sit down at this cafe. Also, maybe this is asshole why of me, but I think a lot of people say they have back issues or some other mild condition just to get things they want. Both my sister and my roommate said it was they had to be their kind of situation for them to decide, so I'm wondering if any of you can decide if I'm TA without having been there? Comment 1. NTA. I agree that she didn't need to sit down. If she did recently have back surgery, she shouldn't be dining at places with limited seating. Plus, the way they went about trying to appropriate your table was pretty bold. I would have stayed at the table just because of that. Comment 2. ESH. It's literally impossible where I live to get a spot at a cafe to socialize because of people like you who order something and then stay for 2+ hours past when they finish said item. They literally fill up the cafes and you either have to wait 20+ minutes, or more, for one to leave or reschedule/relocate your 30 minutes catch up with a friend or whatever, which is extremely frustrating. You should be going to a library or less busy cafe to do this, but she shouldn't have pushed the matter when you said no.